and even when that child is old, he or she will not depart from it. It's a great verse. I've seen a lot of people who, especially in Christian families, who raise up their children, and they try to raise them in a Christian way, and then the children grow up and they kind of drift away from God. They drift away from their beliefs of their parents. And, at some point in time, I like to encourage them, sooner or later, they're going to come around. They're going to realize that the way they're living is causing them so much pain that they're going to want to change. And I have a strict belief that only pain causes change. And I will stick by that till the day I die, because I have seen it so many times, and I've seen it in my own life. Unless something hurts, change isn't going to occur. If everything's happy-slappy in your life and you're going on in your own blissful way, nothing will ever change, because, quite frankly, we're selfish and we're going to take the easy route. I implore everybody out there to take a serious look at your life, even if you're not experiencing pain, and look for ways to positively cause change in your life, whether that's turning to God, or whether that's changing a behavior, or whether that's reaching out to other people. Just look at yourself and make changes. It sounds like a Michael Jackson song, but it is true. Isaiah 54:13, all your children shall be taught by the Lord, and great shall be the peace of your children. Do you want to have peace in your children's lives? Teach them the words of the Lord. Teach them the 10 Commandments, which I was just speaking about. Teach them that right from wrong. Teach them that lying is bad, and that stealing is bad, and that disrespect is a bad thing. All these other moral characteristics that Ronald Reagan stood for, that I stand for, and that I hope that you stand for, you need to teach those to your children. It's very important, especially at a young age, that you begin instilling these principles in your child's life. Ultimately, your children have to stand on their own 2 feet as adults and follow their own beliefs. And I believe in the absolute right of every person on the world to go by their own beliefs and believe what they truly believe is true. But again, getting back to that, there is one truth. And I just want to be very clear about that. There is one truth, and every one of us will know what that one truth was and who he was. And I believe that there will be a day when we all become accountable for everything we've done and left undone as people. So moving on down through, I've read a couple scriptures there. I'm going to give some statistics from the National Child Abuse Statistics in America. This is from a group called National Child Abuse Statistics Child Help, ChildHelp, one word. That's a website that you can go to. If you just type in Child Help on Google, they'll pop up. They give a lot of good information, including ways to prevent child abuse. But some of their statistics are staggering. They're very, very troubling. Every year, more than 3 million reports of child abuse are made in the United States, involving more than 6 million children. And because of these, there's multiple children a lot of times in these situations. So it's a lot of children, 6 million. The United States has the worst record in the industrialized nation, losing 5 children every day due to abuse-related deaths. And I don't think that's the correct total. I think it's even higher, because there's some statistics here a little bit later on that I'm going to come through. Here's one that says it is estimated that between 50 and 60% of child fatalities due to maltreatment are not recorded as such on death certificates. That's 50 to 60% of child fatalities are not recorded as due to maltreatment on their death certificates. So I'd like to know the reason why. If somebody out there knows the reason why that statistic is that way, I don't know, maybe these people are trying to protect the parents, or just trying not to cause them any more grief. They've already suffered the ultimate loss in their child. But it's staggering to me that this number has gone up and up and up. They started keeping statistics, I believe, in 1998. And this is as of 2010. I would imagine the number is even higher a day. If 5 children are killed every day, that's 1,825 per year. In all the Iran and Iran war and the Afghanistan war, I think there's been like 4,000 or 5,000 people killed. There's almost 2,000 children being killed, and probably more every year in the United States. Where's the outcry about that? Where is the legislation and the protection of our children? And protection of our children comes down to us. It isn't the responsibility of the government to protect our children. We need to look not only to our own children, but the children in our neighborhoods. And the gentleman that just called in, that was a school teacher for 12 years. We need to look into the welfare of children that are either under our care or under our view. If we see a child being bullied, we need to bring attention to it. If we see a child being abused, or hear of a child, or see evidences of abuse or neglect in a child's life, we need to do something about it. So let's be diligent in doing that. Getting on with this report, I'm just going to give you some more information based on the statistics that I'm reading here. The number one abuse of children is neglect. And that's one of the main focuses I want to have on this show today. I know, focuses is a word. But one of the main focuses I want to have on today's show is that, neglect is abuse. And a lot of people are neglecting their children out there. If you're letting your children just go willy-nilly and never giving them any correction, any directions, it just is something that's going to come back to bite you in the end, and it's going to hurt your child. Here's a verse from the Bible that speaks to it absolutely, to the point. Proverbs 29:15. The rod or discipline and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself or herself brings shame to his mother. So if you let your child raise themselves, you let Xbox, Wii, Nintendo, PS3, the computer, any gaming system you ever want to name, if you let that raise your children, you are doing the wrong thing. You are allowing your children participating in something that is hurting them, and they're not giving them direction. You need to sit down with your children and tell your children what you believe and why you believe it. And at a very young age, you need to start this. So I would implore parents out there, please do this. Minister to your children and speak to them and preach to them. Not so much standing up on a pulpit, but I say preaching, just say it over and over again, and not at the same time, but today, next week, the week after that, and just keep teaching them. And don't just try to drill it into their heads. I mean, come on. Anything done to excess is going to backfire on you. I know there's some parents that are so strict in their home and so controlling over their children, who they're with, their behavior. They keep them out of school. They homeschool them, and there's nothing wrong with homeschooling. Don't jump on me about that. I know a lot of people have homeschooled and done a wonderful job with it. But I think sometimes some of the motives are to keep our children out of society. Well, guess what? your children are going to grow up, whether you homeschool or not, or whether or not you put them in this huge protective bubble their whole childhood, they're going to go out into the real live world someday. And when they go out into the real live world, will they be prepared for it? Or are you just going to send a sheep out to the slaughter? These kids need to know what the truth is and know how to withstand temptation and know how to do things in a proper and a correct manner. There are, countless movies out there of a young person from the Midwest leaving home and then going either to a big city or a college or whatever, and getting there, and then their morality being totally corrupted, and their basis of their teaching as children being totally turned around because they've never been taught anything about what the real world is like. You just can't throw your children out into society without having them experience some of society. And I know there's a lot of filth and evil out there. And yes, we should keep our children from that filth and evil as much as possible. But we should also warn them in how to deal with this type of things. Okay, here's another thing. This is an awesome verse. I just ran across this morning. I really never noticed this. I've read this verse, I'm sure, hundreds of times. But it says, John 16:21. John 16:21. When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish. Now listen to this. For joy that a human being has been born into the world. Here's the point I'm making. She's, rejoicing that a human being has been born into the world, and that human being existed in her womb, and that is one of the best testaments to pro-life and the ideals of being pro-life. Something that Ronald Reagan stood for, and a lot of the other presidents stood for, and I applaud them for doing so. They took a lot of criticism for it. And I know I've taken some criticism myself for believing what I believe about abortion, that it is wrong, that is always wrong, and always will be wrong. And I will fight against it into my dying day. I assure you of that. So getting back to some of these statistics, approximately 80% of children that die from abuse are under the age of 4 years old. That's just a really disheartening thing, but 80% of the children are under the age of 4. More than 90% of juvenile sexual abuse victims know their perpetrator in some way. So if you have children and there are other trusted friends and relatives and whatever around your children, you need to start talking to your children when they're very young, when they're very young, and explain to them what appropriate touching is, what inappropriate touching is, that they have boundaries that they can set, that they have rights with regard to their bodies, that it's not their fault if they're abused, because a lot of the perpetrators of these crimes tell the child it's their fault, or that they're going to threaten their family or them in some way with some type of physical harm. You need to let your children know at a very young age to tell you immediately if something like this happens. First of all, it'll prevent further abuse to your child, and second of all, it'll get that person off the streets and away from ability to hurt any other children. So very important. Another thing here is child abuse occurs at every socioeconomical level. I'm sorry I said that so haltingly, but sometimes I place the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. So, child abuse occurs at every level of society, across ethnic and cultural